Hey everyone, Adrian from Groundhogg here, and today I am super excited to take you on a tour of Groundhogg 3.0's brand new email editor. We've been promising this for a long time, and it's finally coming to fruition. We've worked really hard on it, and I really hope that you are going to like it. I think you are. We've compared it against the top email builders in the market, and I'm just going to say it's pretty good. So today I'm going to take you on a tour. I've got a list of all of the brand new features that I want to share with you. We're going to go through them one by one. So stick around. Let's get into it. So we're going to start off on the template screen. It's a template screen. This is where you will end up the first time you want to add an email. We've got a list of templates that you can choose from. We have a few templates in there at the moment. There are going to be more templates eventually. This is all library based. We host these templates in the cloud. So as we create new templates, they'll automatically show up when you go to add a new email. But we've got a few in there right now. Some of our older templates, some new ones as well. And if you look at the top, we see we've got search. So when we do have more templates in there, like Black Friday emails or discount emails or WooCommerce emails or whatever, those will eventually show up here and you'll be able to search them by name. And to the right of that, you see we actually have a few buttons. We have an import HTML button. So for those of you who are currently using our advanced email editor, you're aware of the HTML template option where you can import emails from BeFree or Stripo or maybe another CRM that you're switching from. That feature, which used to be paid, is actually being moved to the free version. So if you're on free, you'll be able to leverage using HTML emails as well. Next to that, you see there's an import template button. So in Groundhogg 3.0, you'll be able to export an email or export and import emails exactly the same way that you would a funnel. That's pretty cool. And to the right of that, we have a start from scratch button in the event you don't want to use a template and you just want to start writing freehand. For the sake of the demo, I'm going to grab our discount with products template, where we have some big text, some small text, some buttons, some columns, some borders. There's lots of cool stuff that we're going to get into. So let's start off on the right-hand side of the email editor. There's some settings there that may look familiar. We have our send from setting, so who we actually want the email address to send from, or the email to send, which address we want the email to send from, where we want replies to go, browser view, show in templates, and then under that, there's some settings that you won't recognize because they're new. So we have the template settings. So first off, I'm going to go through these settings one by one. You'll see under template, we have the boxed terminology. If we go ahead and click on that, we see that we've actually have different email layouts now. So boxed is the standard Groundhogg email template that we've been shipping emails with for the last 5 years. It's a 600 pixel width. All the content goes in there. And that is pretty solid for 99% of the email clients that you're ever going to send an email to. We've got some new ones though. We have the full width contained template. So to give you a visual of what that looks like, this is boxed. If I go to this section and I give it a background color, you'll be able to see it a little bit more visually. So we have this purple background color here. You can see that it's contained to that 500 pixel width setting that we have. If we wanted the background to go, let's say, the entire width of the email, but keep the content within that 500 pixels, we could set it to full width contained, and then you can see by the outline the content is contained to that specific setting, and then but the background goes the entire width of the content. So that allows you to create some interesting templates. If you wanted the content to go the entire width, you would be able to select the full width, and then that stretches the email to the entire width of the viewport of that person's inbox. So some different options there for you to create some interesting email layouts. I'm going to switch it back to boxed, which is my personal favorite. Under that, we can select the alignment and we can change the width of the content. So if we wanted to go a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller, depending on your design language, you can do that here and then select the alignment of that email. Under that, we have a new background color setting. So if you wanted to send a Black Friday email, which is coming up, and you wanted the background of your email to be black, go ahead and set it to black, and then you can change all your font colors to white. Background image. So if you have like a repeating background image or something that you want to do, you can drop that in there. You can select a URL from anywhere basically. And then there's a bunch of different background image settings you can choose from. Under that, we have the new campaigns feature. I'll just touch on this briefly. We'll have a different video dedicated to the new campaigns feature, but essentially they're categories for marketing assets, but you can assign them to emails, broadcasts, and funnels, and they're useful for filtering your reports in the reporting dashboard. Again, this will be in a different video, but this is very cool. Moving on to the advanced tab from the email settings tab, we have the custom headers. So this is pulled from the previous version of the email editor. You can add custom headers here to do some cool or fancy stuff that you might want to do, like overwrite the from address or BCC or CC people, all these except replacement codes. This isn't exactly new, but it's moved to this advanced tab. And then on to the right of that, we see this little settings icon. And now these are the editor controls. These are very cool. So if we go ahead and click there, we see we have global fonts. Now, if you're familiar with Elementor or Beaver Builder, all those products have a global fonts section. And here you can add and create custom fonts and select different web-safe fonts here. And basically, if text block in your email is using a global font, if you update this font in the editor, it updates across all your emails and allows you to keep your design language across emails consistent. So you do not have to change the settings of your text blocks or your buttons or whatever every single time. You can just reference your global font. I think that's pretty cool. So we can add a new font. Let's call it Buttons. And we want it to be bold, so we'll choose the Arial black font. We can set the font size to 18, line height, font weight. Since it's black, we'll leave it as normal. The font style, whether we want italic or oblique or just normal. We can set it to uppercase so that all the letters, regardless of how you type them in, show up as uppercase. And then we can go ahead and do that. And then we just save the email whenever we do that to make those changes propagate across all your emails. Very cool. Underneath the global fonts, you'll find the social accounts. So this is a really nice way to manage your social links in all your emails, because that's the thing that you probably want to do now. So we can go ahead and add Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter or X now, WordPress, and you can just put in your various different social links there. And then changing this when you have the social icons block, which is also new, which we'll get to in a moment, and you set that to use the global settings, updating those settings here, again, updates across all your emails. Underneath the social accounts, we have the color palettes. This is one of our top feature requests from our old email editor, now making its way into the new one. So rather than having to remember all your color codes, you can choose up to 8 colors that actually show up in the color picker. So this color picker here, let's go find one. So you can actually change what these are, so you can just click them and it fills it out automatically. So you don't actually have to remember all your color codes and you don't have to do any copy pasting. You can just update those from here. And I think that's also pretty cool. Taking your attention from the right-hand side of the editor, we're going to go over to the left-hand side of the editor. So on the left-hand side of the editor, you are going to find your blocks as well as this fun little menu here. So first off, on this little menu, we have the block inspector. So the block inspector shows you a sort of tree of your email. Sometimes, depending on the layout of your email, it can be hard to select a specific block. So you can always open the block inspector, and then hovering over a block will show you, in the block inspector will show you where it is. And if I go ahead and select a specific block in the editor, I can then go over to the inspector and see where that is. And I can also drag them in the inspector as well to reorder blocks in case you don't want to use the drag and drop arrows here. So the block inspector makes it really easy to debug your email editor and do some little bit more like finicky adjustments. Below the block inspector, which you can just toggle on or off, we have desktop view and mobile view. So you can actually click mobile and then edit your email in the mobile view rather than having to go back and forth between editing in desktop mode and then previewing it in mobile. You can just see what it looks like at a glance and edit it from here as well, and then transition back to the desktop view. To the left of that, we have our blocks. There's some of the standard blocks that you remember from previous editors, the text block, button block, image, spacer divider, HTML. Some new blocks, we have the columns block. Now let's go ahead and I'll actually just click on the column block here, and we have a few layouts to choose from. We have a full width layout, so that's just one column. This is handy for creating like sections, if you want to think of it like that. We have our 2 columns, 3 columns, 4 columns, 3 columns with a big one in the center, big one to the left, big one to the right. We have like a 1/3, 2/3 kind of thing going. You can change the gap in between columns. You can set the alignment of the content for the columns. So whether you want it in the middle to make sure everything's like aligned horizontally. And then you can toggle responsive on or off. So responsive is toggled off in this column, which means that whenever it's in mobile view, the logo and the login will show side by side rather than stacked. So by default, all columns are responsive. If you don't want that, you can actually turn it off, and then you're good. The next block that I want to show you, which I think you'll also be excited about, is the dynamic posts block. So if we head on over to the left-hand side of the editor, we can grab our posts block. I'm just going to go ahead and we'll drag that in at the top here. And here we go. So this pulls dynamically your latest posts from your blog. Let's go ahead and look at some of its settings. We have the featured settings. So this shows the big post first. If you don't want that, you can disable that, and then it'll show them just all in a grid. You can enable post excerpts, which is like the little short description of the post, and those will show up. You can disable or enable thumbnails. That's sort of up to you what you want to do there. The gap between posts is controlled here. You can set colors as well as font choices for the headings. So if you want those to show in like a different font, let's say Arial Narrow, boom, there we go. And we can set the colors to whatever you want. You can select the different sizes of the various thumbnail sizes that you have on your site. And then down here, we choose the actual post query. So currently the only post type that's supported are posts. We will be adding support for additional post types in the future. We have the number of posts that you want. So if you only wanted to show 3 posts, you can go ahead and do that. You can set the offset, and then you can get into the actual more sophisticated query stuff where you select post tags, post categories. You can exclude or include specific posts by IDs. And then for the developers, you can add an ID here and then filter the query using PHP. That's a little bit more advanced. I'm not going to get into that today. But there's lots of query options here to dynamically show the latest posts that you have in an email. One of the templates for Groundhogg that we have is the recurring posts notification, which sends out your latest posts every single week. So if you're always producing content, that's a great one to have. You can set it and forget it, and it just sends people the latest content that you've written every week. And now we have a beautiful visual way to facilitate that. So that's very cool. After the post block, we definitely got to look at the socials block. So I talked a little bit about the global socials a little bit earlier, and you can see how that's done here. So from social accounts, you can select global, which is the default option. Again, those are set in the editor settings, or you can select custom, and then you can choose which social accounts you want to show. We have lots of different themes for the social icons. So you can do square, you can do black, you can do gray, you can do white. You can do the icon only, you can do filled. It's totally up to you what kind of theme you want, but we got lots to choose from. Setting the alignment, setting the icon size, gap between icons, all good stuff that you have at your disposal to add social icons to your emails. After social icons, The next new block is the footer block. So one of the most frequent questions that we get from new users of Groundhogg is, how do you edit the footer? Now, the footer is sort of a compliance essential item. You have to have your address, phone number, and some other essential information to send emails pretty much in all larger economies. In all countries with larger economies, these informations are essential. So rather than having to generate that uneditable footer, which if you've been a long time user of Groundhogg, you're fairly familiar with, we now have the footer block, which gives you a little more flexibility in the design. You can specify where it shows in the email editor. You can select the font color, as well as the link color and link style, and you can also select the alignment of the footer and choose where it goes. So if you are designing an email and you want it to go somewhere specific in the content, you can now do that. Adding the footer in your email will prevent it from being auto-generated and added. So if you are not using the footer block, the old footer will still continue to be generated and appended to the end of your email. That's just sort of to make sure that you're in compliance and save you from getting into any legal trouble. So the next thing that we want to look at is the style controls for all of the blocks. Now, every block on the left-hand side will have access to these style controls. So if we go ahead and open up this column, clicking on the Advanced tab will bring you to the style controls. Here you can control things like padding around a block. So you can make it bigger or smaller. There's border controls where you can select the type of border that you want. If you want dotted or dashed, you can select the background color. So let's make the background orange. You can give specific blocks a background image. You have different responsive options here. So if you only want a block to show on the desktop version, the mobile version, you can do that here. So if I say hide on desktop, you can see that it gets grayed out because we don't actually see this on the desktop version. And if we go to our mobile version, it then shows up. We have also custom CSS. So if you want to target a specific element within this block that you don't have settings for, you can go ahead and you can use custom CSS. Let's say we want to choose the selector, and that's going to automatically populate with the CSS ID of that block when it gets generated. And we want to target all paragraphs within this block and say, text transform uppercase. You can see how that just affected the content there. And so you can get some pretty cool granular stuff going on using custom CSS. Not all CSS works across clients, so depending on what you put in there, don't hold it against me. There's actually this really handy chart, not made by us, it's made by Campaign Monitor, but whatever. You can go check there and they tell you what the compatibility is of all the different CSS, and you can see that they have this handy little chart for everything. So very cool. Now, if you were looking closely, you might have seen the Conditional Visibility tab, which we kind of skipped over. Now, this is where stuff gets really cool. So if you are currently a Pro Groundhogg customer, you have conditional logic in your funnels, which allows you to filter steps that can be completed by people who match certain filters. This is that, but for email blocks. Before, in Groundhogg, you had to create different email templates to minutely change content for specific audiences. Now you can create one email and simply filter the content within that email using filters. So let's say I only want this block. Let's make 2 of them. And let's say we have different discount codes for different groups of people. Let's say, we'll just make this one a 9 instead of an 8. And boom, we have 2 different discount codes. Now we want everybody with a specific tag to get this code, and we want everybody with a different tag to get this code. So we would go ahead and we'd select that block. We would enable contact filters, and you'll see when you do that, there's a little eye, so you can keep track of which content is protected by certain filters. We can say include tags, and we want everybody, not that I have many tags on this site, we'll select the import tag. So everybody with this tag will see this one, and then on the other block, we can say only include people that don't have that import tag. Everybody that has the tag will get this section. Everybody that doesn't will see this section. So that way you can create very dynamic emails in one place, send a broadcast to your entire list, and have the content be incredibly hyper-targeted to your audience. And that saves you creating extra emails, and it just makes everything so much faster and simpler. All of the filters from all of your integrations for like WooCommerce or LearnDash or Lifter or Affiliate WP, everything will show here. So you can access data from your entire data set on your WordPress site in order to effectively create hyper-targeted emails using this feature. Very cool. Going to the top of the email editor, we have some new features here as well, undo and redo, which also hooks into controller Command-Z and Command-Shift-Z or Command-Y, depending on the system that you're using. So if I go ahead and I just click the undo button a bunch of times, we can see how that affects our content, or clicking redo redoes everything for us. To the right of that, we have our previews. We've had previews for a long time. They're still previews, but they show up a little bit nicer and a little bit better to look at. These are live, so whereas previously if you're using either of the email editors, you had to save the email before you could see a refresh version of the preview. No longer the case. As you're editing the content, you will be able to click those preview buttons and it will show you a preview of that content and how it's supposed to look, regardless of its current status or whether you've saved it or not. Same thing goes for the mobile preview. You will always be able to see the freshest version of your edits without actually having to save the email. Another new feature, in previous editors, you also were responsible for writing your own plain text versions, or Groundhogg would generate a pretty rough plain text version. It didn't have links and stuff, and it wasn't super well thought out, but it was enough to get by. But now with our new block editor, so each of these blocks are actually registered with a specific plain text generator, depending on your settings. And if we were to go and click this, we can actually see how sophisticated our plain text version generator is. So you no longer have to create your own plain text version or plain text copies of the emails. They're actually rendered out in Markdown, which people who typically look at plain text emails, their email clients support Markdown generally, and they just look at the Markdown version of emails. So all of the emails get automatically converted to Markdown. Very cool. And you can actually see that preview here by clicking on the little plain text version. To the right of that, we have our send test option. Again, not much has changed here, except for the fact that you can send a test to multiple emails at the same time, whereas previously you had to select one email. Now you can choose multiple email addresses. So if I want to send one to, myself, a friend, or you want to send one to one of those email testing services or Email on Acid, right? If you have any of those email testing services, you'll be able to type out all the email addresses you want, click send once, rather than you have to repeat that process. All these emails get saved, so every time you want to send a new email or send a new test email, it'll automatically be preloaded with all those email addresses that you selected. Going to the right of that, we have save draft or publish. So these buttons replace the toggle. So if you are familiar with our email editor, you know that there's a ready or draft toggle. We've done away with that. That still exists for the funnels, but not for emails. It's just save, draft, or publish. If you publish the email, it just gets updated, and you can move it back to draft here if you want. You get a nice little warning, just making sure that you actually meant to do that. To the right of there, we have our little 3 dots, and from here you can export the email. We talked about that a little bit earlier, and that just gives you a nice little JSON file which you can take to other installations of Groundhogg, or as if you want to back up emails, you can do that if you're ever making changes, so you can always go back to a previous version. You can also select broadcast, and you can see a little bit of a demo of our new broadcast tool, or you can take the delete action from this screen as well. Going back to the template area after adding a new email, we are going to quickly demo the import HTML option. So if I go ahead and click that, I quickly went to Stripe.io and just got an HTML email. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to upload the HTML file that they gave me. and that immediately loads all the HTML here. And I can edit that HTML as is, dump in my replacement codes. And we have on the right-hand side, we have campaigns. We get to keep that. Just a little quick blurb about the HTML editor, like thing you want to merge in your business address, your phone, the unsubscribe link. We can set the subject line here on the right-hand side now rather than it being up top because there was nowhere else to put it. We have our send from and reply to marketing. And some options get moved around, like there's no email editor settings here because it's just HTML. It's kind of, you do that elsewhere. But we have all of our preview options. So the nice thing is that all your HTML emails get automatically converted into Markdown as well, so you don't need to worry about plain text versions. If we go ahead and we click on the plain text preview, we see all that nice stuff gets just automatically converted. Very cool. And we have our desktop preview as well as our mobile preview working wonderfully. So that is the HTML editor. This is now no longer a paid version or a paid feature. This is now being bundled with Groundhogg free. So if you're using the free version of Groundhogg, you're welcome. If you're using the pro version of Groundhogg, thank you. There's other goodies that are going to be coming out and paid features for our email editor, like extra blocks and countdown timers and other new stuff in the future. So look forward to that. So that is our new email editor in a nutshell. We worked really hard to bring all of the features that we think are going to be essential for businesses sending quality email to their subscribers. If there's anything you think we missed, let us know in the comments below. If you really like what you see, you can also drop a comment below and give us your feedback. This is coming out very, very, very soon. Keep your eye out for it. It's going to be before Black Friday. Let us know what you think. Have a good one.